And TFP with RIC broadcasting live from the Jersey Shore around the football universe. It's all brought to you by Ocean Casino Resorts down in Atlantic City. Your home for the Pond League Hockey pre- and post-game this Saturday night. It's all going down. The Turnpike Trilogy, Part 3. Eagles, Giants, buckle up. We're going to pop up our next legendary guest in a moment. But first, I see some moving and shaking around the league. Maybe we'll get his opinion on what had happened here. The Chargers have fired Joe Lombardi, offensive coordinator, which tells me they are going to keep Brandon Staley. We talked about it yesterday. The Chargers, they're cheap, the Spanos owners, and they're not going to fire Brandon Staley with, I think, 3 years remaining, pay him 25, 30 million over the next 3 years, and then go find another guy to coach the team for 10 million a year. That's not happening with the Chargers. Okay, so you're stuck with Staley, and Jim Schwartz hired as the Browns defensive coordinator. So, hey, a lot of teams have turned their attention to the offseason, the coaching staffs, the draft preparation. But for the teams who are still in the hunt, we're lucky enough to have a regular here now on the Football Playbook, Mike Tanier, joining us. Good morning, Mike. How are you, brother?
Doing great. Great to be part of a no longer Tom Brady involved playoff chase. But
Yes.
still, Dallas Cowboys are involved playoff chase. There's only so much you can accomplish in Wild Card Weekend.
Oh, believe me, we've heard about the Cowboys and we've heard plenty about the 49ers here in the chat room today. And I want to get your opinion on that Buccaneers and Cowboys game and kind of get your finger on the pulse with the teams remaining. I saw you did an excellent piece over at Football Outsiders recapping the super wild card weekend, and it kind of lived up to the billing, didn't it? But first off, I got to ask you about the Philadelphia Eagles, because Football Outsiders did have them pegged in the preseason with the DVOA to go to the Super Bowl. I'm curious to know, what do the DVOA power rankings look like these days?
Well, right now, obviously, there are no Eagles postseason rankings because the Eagles haven't played a postseason game. So one thing we have going right now is our Super Bowl odds. And as of before last night, the team most likely to win the Super Bowl was the San Francisco 49ers. I'm sorry to say. Now, I haven't seen the rerun odds yet, but one reason why the Niners odds were good is because there was a chance that the Buccaneers would beat the Cowboys. And the Buccaneers would go on. The Buccaneers lost 35-7 to the 49ers. That would have been a cakewalk. That team is, as you saw last night, that team is not good. So right now, Eagles are in the thick of it. 49ers have the best odds. Eagles are second. The Bills are in between them, actually, so the Eagles are third. That should not be surprising to anyone who's followed the NFL, especially because right now, as good as the Eagles have been, the 49ers over the last couple of weeks in DVOA, number one team late in the season in DVOA.
You can not surprising. I mean, what do they won? 11 games in a row, is it now?
11 games in a row. They have several blowouts. They have blowouts against playoff caliber team, like the Buccaneers. They count as a playoff caliber team along the way. You don't see weaknesses. You don't even see a weakness in Brock Purdy when you look through his statistics. You say he looks like an above average quarterback right now. We know some of that's the system, but we're not seeing any of the things that would say, oh, this team's going to fall apart because this kid can't get the job done. It's not there in the numbers.
Well, let me ask you, Mike, what you think of Purdy, since you brought him up, because, yeah, it's not perfect, and I thought there was some probably dropped interceptions by the Seahawks there, but, that's bound to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, the kid's been as cool as a cucumber. I would argue, I mean, he's not just steering the ship. I mean, he is the reason why the 49ers are winning.
I wouldn't go that far. He's not a problem by any means, and he's making his contribution. They're winning because Deebo Samuel can take a 3rd and 8 pass 4 yards and take it 35 yards down the field, and George Kittle gets wide open, and Christian McCaffrey gets 60-yard runs, and Nick Bosa gets sacked. Like, there's a lot going on with that team, and Purdy's doing what he needs to do. One thing, if you're looking for a flaw that really pops up, you probably saw this in Seattle. Pocket gets a little weird. He runs straight to his left. That young man tries to escape the pocket every single time to his left, going to the outside towards the sidelines, usually without a plan. The Seahawks don't have any edge rushers. So he runs to the sideline. He has plenty of room to get out there and do his thing. He starts trying to run to the left next week against Micah Parsons, against Armstrong, Fowler, Tank Lawrence, he's probably going to run himself into trouble. And if he gets past that, and assuming the Eagles get past the Giants, we know we have a 70-sack defense here. That's a limit teams have not been able to exploit on him that I think the teams that he's about to face can exploit for him.
All right, interesting. I'm going to keep a closer eye on that. That's why we bring Mike Tanier on the Football Playbook show. So you said we assume the Eagles are going to get by the Giants, but you know what? After Skylar Thompson brought the Dolphins within 3 points, after undrafted Tyler Hunty almost went over the top against the Bengals. I mean, anything is possible in these playoffs here, and the Giants have quite the momentum. I saw last week was the first game where 0 players popped up on their injury report, so they're getting healthy at the right time.
Yep.
Saquon only had 9 carries last week, and Brian Daboll can get exotic now. I saw games where he literally had 8 offensive linemen. I saw another game where he ran the Wildcat with Saquon Barkley. I saw other games where he ran the wishbone offense.
Yes.
So, I mean, and then I saw Wink Martindale this past week. He completely flipped the script. He went from a blitzing attack to a quarter coverage defensive scheme. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what Giants team we're going to see this Saturday night.
You don't know tactically what you're going to get, but you know in terms of athleticism what you're going to get. And you know that their defensive line is very strong. Their offensive line is very strong. And nothing else is really all of that good. And so much of what Daboll and Kafka and Martindale have done is scheme around all of these weaknesses to such a degree that they've been able to hide them in a lot of ways. What they should not be able to do, what they really were not able to do, especially in the first meeting against the Eagles, is hide them. They cannot win one-on-one in the secondary. Okay, and their receivers cannot win one-on-one against defensive backs, and that will give time for the pass rush to get home. So great in the trenches. You're right, very healthy, which definitely matters at this time. Exquisitely well coached. But if you go matchup for matchup, this should be a mismatch for Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, you know, I don't disagree. And we saw that in the first go-around where, especially the offensive line, the Eagles dominated. Every Giants offensive lineman gave up a sack.
Right.
The Eagles defense had 6 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, I think 11 pressures that game. And the second game, not so much, though, because coaching and adjustments, I don't know what they did differently there, but the Giants with their B squad kept it a pretty close game. And coaching is going to come into the equation. I mean, I think we've seen it all throughout the play. Coaching and confidence. Look at the Jaguars. Unbelievable. We can get to them in a second. But, I mean, Wink Martindale, Brian Daboll. I mean, there's something to be said for how they're going to game plan, though, correct?
There is. And that Week 18 was an example of how you don't want this. This is not a team you want hanging around down 8 points, down 10 points, where your mistake could completely flip the game. As a team and the Eagles led very early in that Week 18 game. Well, this is going to be a laugher. It's going to be a laugher. And then they took the feet off the gas. They made mistakes along the way. Eagles make mistake-free football and get a decent lead in this game. It is over. It is over. The Giants are not built to come back against an opponent. There's no receiver who say, "Oh my God, Darius Slayton is going to beat us." We better worry about Daniel Jones's ability to just take over games. None of this is real. Okay, so you take that out of the equation. The Eagles lose this game if, again, they're sloppy. They're looking ahead, which I think was part of it in Week 18. Their game plan is not up to snuff, and they're just launching the ball to AJ over and over again rather than trying to be a little balanced. Make mistakes like that, then you can keep the Giants in the game.
Talking to Mike Tanier, Football Outsiders, New York Times. I know you've been following the Eagles for quite some time, Mike. What do you make of the backfield with Miles Sanders? You hear some talk. He's wearing the knee brace. He says he's not banged up. Sirianni says he is. Mm-hmm. Boston Scott is like the ultimate giant killer, 10 touchdowns in like 8 games. Mm-hmm. How do you see and Gainwell down the stretch was also used, especially inside the red zone, a pass catcher out of the backfield. We've seen that backfield, though, at times, like early on in the season and late in the season, it was more of a committee approach. But then during the season, we saw them lean on Miles Sanders in spurts. Yeah. And then they kind of deviated away from that. I can't pinpoint how this backfield shapes up heading into the playoffs.
I like it. I think it's a solid backfield. I think it's a good rotation. It's good for what the Eagles want to do. You don't necessarily want Derrick Henry battering ram out there when you're going to be in shotgun a lot. You're going to be doing a lot of RPO concepts, a lot of zone read concepts, et cetera, et cetera. And you want pass catchers. And I think Sanders and Gainwell are both pass catchers, and Scott can do it a little bit. So I like it. I don't know what to anticipate there, but if the Eagles can get past the first line of defense, and you look at the guys like Dexter Lawrence and Thibodeau and Leo Williams on that defensive line, you get past that, there are yak opportunities against this Giants, yards after contact against this Giants defense. Eagles backs are better than anybody they have at linebacker, at real linebacker. They're better what they have in the secondary. They should be able to run away from guys, and they should be able to run through some guys. And I think we saw some of that in both games. We did not see enough of it in Week 18. Because in Week 18, there was a little bit too much of let's put them away for good with a few more bombs, and that's where sacks, turnovers, little mistakes come from. There were times in that game where you would run Gainwell, get like a 12, 13-yard gain, and like, why don't we just do this until the season ends?
No, great points. And to me, that says Dallas Goedert, who was not used enough in Week 18.
Right.
I think we need to get the ball into his hands. I've stated the case that, you want to try, like, you don't want to minimize the playbook, but you do want to somewhat minimize how many hits Hurts takes, I think. And to me, like, if you do a couple shuffle or dinks and dunks to Goddard and let him yak it up, it's almost as good as a designed quarterback run sometimes. And to me, I think that's a big key ingredient here for the Eagles this week.
Yeah, the Eagles run a lot of RPO, especially with Goddard's available. So it's the RPO kind of became this meme after the Super Bowl a few years back. Every team was running it, and every team stopped running it and started to become sort of a dirty word in the NFL. Like, oh, God, you're running the RPO. What are you doing? That was like a fad from 3 years ago. The way the Eagles run it, when you have the great offensive line, when you have the balance, when Hurts can give you a zone read look, or you can win with the running game, and you have the deep passing game, and the RPO is just basically your quick game, then it's valuable. And one of the things it does is at the pre-snap, you can look and say, who's covering Goddard? Is it man? Is it zone? Is it a linebacker who's going to get dusted? Is it like their nickel safety who it's like you shouldn't even – maybe you don't try that on this. And you can find those mismatches. And what I hope we see is the Eagles scheming up mismatches like that. Again, there should be mismatches across the secondary. And one of those is probably going to be Goddard on a linebacker from time to time, or a zone or a shell that creates an opportunity for Goddard to get yak. When they see that, pull the ball, get it to him, run the boot, get it to him, get him involved, and get everybody involved along the way, because the Giants will not have any answer for the balance that the Eagles can throw at them.
And I think that's where the preparation of the one Jalen Hurts comes into play, because you heard it early in the year. He said somebody referenced him as a dual threat. He said, no, I like to call myself a triple threat. I like to beat guys with the arm, the legs, and then mentally. And I think, you got a glimpse of that after they beat the Giants Week 18. They had the bye week.
Yes.
And he gave the coaches homework. He said, yo, coaches, I need you in my office Monday morning. This is Sirianni. Hey, put those lunch plans on ice, because we got to prepare. But I say all that because at the end of the day, Mike, we're all speculating in regards to how healthy Jalen Hurts really is. We don't know. I don't know. You don't know.
Right.
I don't even know if Jalen knows, quite frankly. He said he couldn't put a number on it. How much is posturing? I have no idea. But when you do the gut check, like, what does Mike Tanier think about Jalen Hurts' pain tolerance, how much of an impact that'll have on Saturday, and how much the Eagles will have to adapt their offensive strategy because of it?
Well, let's put it this way. Jalen Hurts isn't going to say, I'm not playing suddenly and disappear. There's not that in his DNA of how he does things. So
you mean like a Lamar Jackson?
Yeah. I mean, let's call it for what it is at this point. Yeah. It's like, he is going to go out there, and you're right. It's going to be arm is ready, mind is ready, willingness to take a hit will be ready. And then you have to say how much is there from the running. Jalen Hurts does not have to be a scrambler, certainly to beat this Giants team. But it would be nice if it was legitimately looked like the threat was there. And that can be as simple as running the zone read early, getting 5 or 6 yards and sliding. So that's there. That's there. And now you got to account for that and everything else. Certainly the ability to run the sneak on short yardage needs to be there. I don't think that's dependent on his leg. When those things are in place, you've got everything you need, I think, from Jalen Hurts to go out there and get a win in this game.
Yeah, no, that's some good points. And did you notice anything with the ball velocity in Week 18, or do you think that he'll be able to test the defense downfield no problem? Or what's your take there?
Well, when you mentioned it, it looked like the ball sailed a little bit. the ball sometimes sails a little bit when he throws deep.
Mhm.
He's not Josh Allen throwing deep, and it's not always super precise. What makes him and the Eagles dangerous is that those guys are open deep. Or A.J. Brown is going to catch contested passes. Both him and Smitty can kind of track down the ball a little bit. And, if you throw 5 bombs and 2 are off target and 3 connect, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, Josh Allen, don't throw interceptions, but Josh Allen shows that all the time. Yeah, we connect enough of these. Those are touchdowns. They work. So I don't know if the velocity is better or worse. The deep ball has to be there. Again, there's going to be downfield matchups. I think he's going to have no problem finding them if they're open.
Yeah, he's a pretty good deep ball throw, but it's more touch. It's not
touch.
There's not a lot of velocity, and you're right. Yeah,
It'll sail. It tails.
Yeah, well, hey, if you got A.J. Brown downfield one-on-one, you got a 50-50 jump ball. I feel like our odds are 75-25.
Right, that's exactly it. He gives you that. And again, both of them also adjust the ball well. And that's what having great receivers does. There are a lot of deep passers in the NFL who are not very good deep passers. I mean, Tua is obviously not a very good deep passer. You got guys who can get the ball for him. It makes him better. Jalen's better than Tua. My goodness, I don't want to go there. But having those receivers creates a little more margin for error.
Mike Tanier, Football Outsiders, New York Times, here on the Football Playbook. Smash that like button while you're here. We're getting to the nitty gritty. Let me switch it up then and ask you about the Eagles' pass defense, because you've stated, Mike, you're not scared of the world beaters such as Darius Slay and Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins. However, I mean, can you is there any analytics out there on the Eagles secondary, specifically Darius Slay? He's been a hot button topic in the second half. Now, listen, I'm not expecting him to be flawless,
right?
But he's been on the wrong end of some big plays, pun intended, quite frankly. What are you seeing? What are you thinking? What are you hearing? What's your take on Darius Slay?
Well, first, there's an expectation for a Pro Bowl cornerback to never give up a big play. That is across the league, that is across fans, that is across history. When the guy when Richard Sherman gave up a big play, it went viral every single time. And so, Slay has made his share of mistakes, but I'll give you some numbers right now. This is Football Outsiders defense versus receivers. Against number 1 receivers, Eagles rank 2nd. Against number 2 receivers, Eagles rank 4th. Against all the slot guys, everything else, actually down at 22nd. So that's a little bit of a problem there. But part of
I would love to see what that looks like, though, with and without Avonte Maddox, because I think that number goes up with Maddox in there.
And with C.J. Gardner-Johnson also was a factor in that along the way. You're right. And also something that happens with our statistics is the quarterback's going to throw the ball somewhere. So you'll look at a team and they'll say number 1 against number 1 receivers, number 2 against number 2 receivers, and they're 15 against number 3 receivers. That's quarterbacks just surrendering and tossing the ball to number 3 and number 4. That's not good. That means you're winning as a defense if they're scared to throw to their number 1 and 2 guys. So just to give you how it looks, Eagles allow 60.5 yards per game to number 1 receivers, 40.2 yards per game to number 2 receivers. Those are very, very low numbers across the league. So, you can focus on the big play here, big play there. Aggregate across the season, both corners, they've been outstanding. And this isn't the matter. Talk to me when it's C.D. Lamb again and T.Y. Hilton. Talk to me when somebody's got to tackle Debo. But this week, it should be okay. And yeah, I think in 18, Slay had a gamble and guess mistake. If I remember correctly, he thought he had an interception. That's the residue of design. That's what those great guys will do. And maybe the next time he tries it, it is the pick.
Yeah, I mean, they do have the number 1 pass defense. The Eagles do for a reason, 179 yards per game. So, all right, great insight there on the Birds. Mm-hmm. We got a few minutes to play around with. Did you get a glimpse at Tom Brady's farewell last night?
I did not. What did the game?
Yeah.
I thought he did something after the game,
he did. He said he thanked all the media for the coverage and thank you so much. But I was talking more about the farewell performance. Yeah,
it was very farewell-y, and I don't think it's a farewell. I think we're going to see him in 2023 somewhere. But it looked like I'm done. I'm done with this. Or he didn't act like he was done with it, but it looked like if he goes to another team and doesn't have 2 all-pro tackles and 2 all-pro wide receivers, he's going to look like Matt Ryan looked this year. because he cannot move. He cannot throw on the run. Getting around the pocket in any way, it's almost like he needs a walker at this point. He needs cleanliness in front of him, and he needs openness down the field. And at that point, if that's what you need, then go get a rookie and develop him. Don't pay Tom Brady. If you can provide all those things for your quarterback, go get Brock Purdy and let him go out there. Don't necessarily waste money and energy and mental energy on Tom Brady.
The sad thing, Mike, is you're right. Somebody's going to fall for this facade, and it could be the Raiders who, be careful what you wish for. You run Carr out of town and you want to, fix the mistake because Gruden didn't want Brady a couple years back. Well, be careful what you wish for.
Talk about cheap owner. One meeting between Mark Davis and Tom Brady is like, well, I'll need this. Like, I don't have that anymore. So, take care. Go talk to Woody Johnson. Go talk to Stephen Ross. They've got some money lying around.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this then. How do you see the Cowboys? To me, I don't put it past them to run the table, but to me, they're the biggest boom or bust team. Like, you watched them lose to the Sam Howell-led Commanders, and you say, oh, this team has no shot.
Right.
Then you see, glimpses of the potential that they can do last night. Where are you on the Cowboys scale? How does that shape up with this 49ers matchup, do you think?
They're a boom or bust team. You're absolutely right. They're on a boom time right now. I think week 18 was weird. I think back to the Texans game that they almost lost, that they would have lost if the Texans were any good. They will do that to themselves. It's only 3 games left. You don't say, well, they're going to fall apart at some point. There's 3 games. That fall apart might be, too late for the Eagles, for example. I think they match up well against this opponent because they can throw the ball deep. You can throw the ball deep against the Niners if you can protect your quarterback. They've got good bodies on the offensive line. They showed that after the first quarter when everything was shaky. They got it worked out, and they can protect, and they can rush the passer. And that's what I said earlier. You rush the passer. You make Brock Purdy get off of his point. You make him start running around. I don't think he knows how not good a scrambler he is yet. And if the Cowboys can get that, you get two early sacks and 1 turnover, tilt the game in the other direction from the 49ers, I think the Cowboys can come away with that win. I'm not calling it, but I'm saying it's probably a 50-50 split at this point, in my opinion.
I agree. I think it's going to be the most closely contested game of them all.
Yeah.
And that's Sunday night thriller.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the first game on Sunday, Cincinnati at Buffalo. The Bengals were my preseason pick for the Super Bowl. Yeah. I'm not hopping off that wagon. I am concerned about the offensive line, but they were in kind of a similar situation a year ago. However, when Vegas tells me the Bills are a 5-point favorite here, I don't see it that way. I think this is a very evenly matched game.
Well, after I watched the Bills game, I said the Bills are in trouble because the Bills are so self-destructive. Then I watched the Bengals game, and I said the Bengals are in real trouble. And the Bengals are in real trouble because it's injury trouble. They just lost their left tackle, Jonah Williams. Earlier lost their right tackle, La'el Collins. They lost one of their guards. So there's 3 offensive linemen, and all the offensive linemen they're bringing in are all the backups who stunk last year. So credit to them for keeping their starters as backups because that's continuity and everything. But you can't rely on these guys. Okay, so when you start putting these guys like Hakeem Adeniji and Isaiah Prince, and I forget the other guy's name out there, you can see them giving up sacks too. Russo and Basham and Epineza and these other guys on the Bills line who have been playing very well in Von Miller's absence. So that's where that line comes from, is those injuries. If we had a healthy Bengals offensive line, I'd be giving you a very different song and dance right now.
No, fair enough. You make some valid points. Last one, Saturday before the Eagles and Giants Turnpike trilogy, we have Dougie P versus Andy Reid, Jaguars and Chiefs. This one is the biggest point spread, 8.5. And again, I mean, this time of year, Mike, I think we saw it last week with the Jaguars being down 27. Anybody can win on any given Saturday or Sunday come January, right?
Anybody can win. Even the Jaguars, but they probably won't. I've been doing this. You've been doing this for years. I've been doing this for decades. We come out of the wild card weekend and we look at these teams and we say, they're hot. These teams are hot. The Jaguars are hot. And the reason why the Chiefs aren't hot right now is because they had a bye because they're awesome, because they're better than everybody else, and they can sit back with Patrick Mahomes and wait. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it'd be a fun shootout. But if you look at Football Outsiders, we look at the statistics, the Chiefs are far better than the Jaguars offensively, even in the last 6 or 7 games. And the Chiefs are slightly better defensively than the Jaguars. The Jaguars are not very strong on defense, and the Chiefs might have an advantage there. And that's really all they're going to need, I think, to cover the spread in that game.
Sounds like, if I'm reading the Football Outsiders tea leaves correctly, it's going to be Chiefs and Bills, Eagles and Niners.
Yeah, Eagles and Niners.
And as Russell Wilson would say, let's ride.
Yeah, Chalkzilla. I think we just went with 4 favorites. I'm pretty sure, and that's how you do it in divisional round weekend. You just roll with favorites unless.
Well, see, that's why I got to bring you over to the Bengals side, but we'll pick up that conversation for maybe next month. We can have you back for Super Bowl week. I always enjoy the insight. Let us know, what do you got cooking on New York Times, Football Outsiders? What's coming out next? I know you got a great podcast with our guy Aaron Schatz recently put out there. What else is on the horizon?
Twice a week, Aaron Schatz podcasts and live stream. You can catch those Mondays and Thursdays at 1. I'm on a Football Outsiders 3 times a week with fresh articles. There'll be a couple coming later in the week. I'm doing the coaching carousel. I'm doing all-time playoff records for different quarterbacks along the way, so you can find out who the all-time Eagles leaders are in playoff wins and losses. You can probably guess right now, but you probably might not be able to guess the Chiefs or the Bengals ones, for example. So a lot of stuff like that happening.
And I know
the Bengals record holder is for playoff wins, right?
It is Joe Burrow.
It is Joe Burrow. He just won it, which is amazing because they went to 2 Super Bowls. They had good quarterbacks. They had
Boomer Esiason, Ken Anderson, absolutely.
Yeah, Carson Palmer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, also, I should mention you are teaching the analytics course, I believe, over at smww.com, Sports Management Worldwide, along with Aaron Schatz. Give us a little tease there.
If you want to come on SMWW and consider a career in the field of sports, and this could be anything from becoming a scout to trying to get into analytics to trying to do something like, ticket taking and the management of the marketing department. SMWW has courses for you. Our course introduces you to the world of pro football analytics, college football analytics, with me and Aaron Schatz, who, of course, is the Bill James, the founder of NFL Analytics. And we'll kind of tell you the state of the union right now. We'll tell you what kind of job opportunities are out there, hit you up on a lot of the basics on what goes into creating analytic models for teams, all kinds of good stuff. You've got your course. We got courses on scouting. We have courses on general management, lots of things at smww.com.
In fact, I just spoke to Dr. Lynn and Liz yesterday. I told them you were coming on. So anybody interested, don't sign up just yet. Wait till tomorrow or email me, ric@nfldraftbible.com. They're going to hit us with a discount promo code for the analytics course. How about that? Nice. Just for being a good sport and joining us here on the Football Playbook. Mike, we'll talk to you down the road, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Take care and enjoy the game on Saturday.
All right, there you have it. Mike Tanier, one of the best in the business. I told you, we're going to be hitting you with some of the best football minds in the world, in the universe, here on the Football Playbook. Yesterday, we had Eric Edholm from NFL.com. Today was Mike Tanier, New York Times, Football Outsiders. Tomorrow, we've got at least a triple header. Martin Frank, Delaware Journal News. Glenn Irby, Eagles Newswire, USA Today. Kayla Santiago, Delmarva Sports. Maybe the Biz, Chris Bizzagano. I'm trying, guys. But, hey, I was Ric Serritella for Tone DeShields II, holding it down, the super producer behind the scenes. This was the 94th edition of the Football Playbook. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. We got the sports take coming up right now.
Go to get your